All right, we are here to discuss the next bind up for Vagabond. What are we on now, Philip?
This is seventh bind up.
7. Okay, so
Volume.
that's volumes 19 to 21.
Yeah.
See, we have the opposites that we're prepared with. So this one, once again, we've been in a detour for a while where the story is Musashi's. We've been in a Kojiro detour. Now we're detouring again with a group of men who are fighting. It took me a good minute to care about these men or to understand their purpose. How were you here at the beginning? How did you feel about them when we were introduced to them?
Yeah, you're talking about the refugee soldiers who were on the losing side of the Battle of Sekigahara, right?
Yeah.
That's who we're talking about. Yeah, those.
Kuon, Sadako, Ichizo.
Yeah,
Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah, in my head, I just you know what? There's so many names. I'm just calling them big guy, leg wound guy, young guy. those are my names for them.
Oh my goodness. It's usually you that has every name sorted and me that doesn't know what we're talking about.
I gave up. I was like, you know what? He's big guy and he's, so
But
that's
his
the old
name
guy.
is valuable to him. It matters to him what his name is.
Yes, it does. I know, I'm so sorry, but they're
The
old guys.
disrespect.
Yeah. I figured too, because they're not going to be in any future, bind ups or anything. So why am I memorizing their names? They
So
play an interesting role here, and I find that their ultimate encounter with
Kojiro.
Oh gosh, thank you, Kojiro. Their ultimate encounter with him is really big, and I think there's a lot of cool exploration going on there.
Oh, yeah.
But
so
of course,
much is revealed through their encounter with him.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's some big stuff that it leads up to. So eventually, I was on board, but and of course, earlier we get the whole part where Kojiro is fighting for his life against all these peasants and the people who are chasing the scavengers and all that, and
it really disturbs Gononosuke.
Yeah, so that was cool. I thought, his reaction to that versus I started liking Ito a lot less because of
I know, right? He was so charming, and now he seems brutal.
He's a monster, He's like, yeah, this is my plan. I want to basically traumatize this young man so that he can be
I can fight him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I want to fight him. I want to feel the thrill of a warrior who's worthy of me. So I'm going to traumatize and torture this young man deliberately. That's why I brought him there. That was the whole plan.
I know. Oh, it's horrifying. Again, I know you haven't read Hunter x Hunter, but he has Hisoka vibes. I keep bringing up Hisoka, but he's this character who groomed these children to be ultimate fighters so he could have the thrill of a fight that he might die in. It's like, it's so gross. And yeah, that's what Ito. Gononosuke was disturbed by him and even said, I bet the rumor that you made your disciples slaughter each other was true. And it's like, well, he did put numbers on people, point systems on them, and told them kill each other so that you can be worthy to fight me. So yeah, maybe it is true.
Yeah, he just got a lot creepier, and
he did. And he says, filled with hatred and disdain for the soldiers responsible for their losses, they seek retribution for everything. That's not the quote I was trying to quote, but when he says that if he is able to survive, he probably can't. Probably not going to happen. But if he is, we're not going to be friends. We're not going to be equals. He won't be my disciple. He'll be my opponent. And maybe he'll be good enough to kill me.
Yikes. Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. I feel like coming out of this bind up, I went from, wow, Ito, such a cool, I love him, to you kind of embody everything that all these elders have been trying, the opposite of everything that all these elders have been trying to teach Musashi.
Yes. It's like ego. He's all about me. He's doing this so I can have the thrill of fighting someone that I might, be evenly matched with. It's very egotistical. He's a narcissist.
It does feel that way. Yeah. And he glorifies the beast. Yeah. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Inoue, sorry, I forgot his name for a second. Inoue did a great job of building him up in a
Mhm.
very likable way and then just destroying that. And I'm really curious if we're gonna shift angles again just a little bit and build him back up again. Like, how many times are we gonna change perspectives on this man?
Yeah, I mean, he's charismatic. There's no denying it. He's vivid, very well realized character. So when I say I don't like him, I'm not saying I don't like the character work. I
Oh,
think it's
yeah.
brilliant,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but he's a creep, you know. So he's something. But I also like what I'm gonna call him Muso, Gononosuke.
Kononosuke,
Yeah,
yeah.
I loved his little part in here because we learn about him, his background a little bit, how he was a bully and his village.
Yeah.
And there's that one panel with him picking his nose and just kind of being an idiot, and he's realizing, "Gosh, I was an idiot." And I think we all have these points in our lives when we look back and think, "Oh my goodness, I was kind of an idiot, wasn't I?" You know.
Yeah.
But he has
Yeah.
affection for Kojiro. He has he's my only
Just
friend.
one friend.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that he serves as a really good counter to what we've just revealed about Ito. You know,
Yes.
Ito is very much that lonely here at the top theme again, and, Gononosuke was also that, where he was at the top. Everybody was afraid of him, even the adults. He was a prodigy in fighting, and, then he wears his banner of being immortal and all this stuff, and then is humbled quickly and becomes a disciple of the person humbled, and then sees that the person that he's become a disciple of is a bit of a monster.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he serves as sort of like the younger version of Ito who's been humbled. I wonder if
Mm.
Ito's gonna be humbled or like, I don't know. I'm just so curious about how this is all gonna go.
It's really well done. And the other element, I think, during this particular volume is all the peasants who are chasing after Kojiro and trying to basically scavenge, get something out of this because their homes have been ruined. And I don't know how it's tough. I feel very conflicted about these peasants because, on the one hand, I feel bad for them because of their social superiors have destroyed their lives
Oh,
because
yeah.
of their worship of violence.
Mm.
And a lot of them are just like, please leave us alone, let us live. But then, of course, they have allowed the beast, the monster in them, to awaken in reaction to the violence done to them, and so they're taking it out on whatever they can find. And Kojiro is in the wrong place because Ito put him there on purpose.
And
But
poor Kajiro, he's fighting without food, without water. He's
yeah,
fighting while sleeping,
yeah,
and becomes so desperate that he drinks from a random well that's been tainted, that's been
yeah.
toxified on purpose, and still doesn't stop. Like, I'm so endeared to him. I've become more attached to him even than Musashi.
It's interesting. There was one moment where I choked up in this, and it was when at the end of this, near the end of it might be the end of this volume or the beginning of the next, but it's where he's finally gotten through all these peasants, and then the group of refugee soldiers, old guy, big guy, young guy, that group, they finally are making it to this mountain pass, and who do they see there but Kajiro? And Kajiro, as you said, he's all worn out. He's sick from drinking from that well. He's in a state of, I think, near despair, and it's clear that they see him as an antagonist. And
He's a mountain to them.
he's like in their way, and there's this inevitable sense of conflict. But what he says there, and it got me. This is where it got me, is when Kojiro says, then he says "ei," which is Jisai, and he's longing for his father. He's
Mm.
longing for that comfort, and he doesn't understand why are all these people attacking me? Why is the world filled with people who are trying to kill me, who are trying to do violence to me? And I think it's a lament in a way in that moment when he calls out the name of his father, and he wants that comfort. And I got kind of choked up at that point. I don't know.
I didn't realize that he was trying to say his father's name there.
Yeah, he says I, and then in the next panel they show Jisai wondering, have
I was
you?
about to ask if it was right
Where
before we
are you? You know,
decided.
where are you, Kajiro? Have you made any friends? You know, and
Mm.
then these guys are attacking him. It's interesting though because of the violence. There's a weird thing that happens in the course of the fight, right?
They
Where
become friends, in my opinion.
they become like more than friends. they become in a way like united in this bliss and
I think
this.
they become brothers. I mean, Sadorke, the old man.
That's old guy, yeah.
Yeah, the old man who says, "You could be my son." And then he looks back at the men that are traveling with him. He's like, "They're my sons. You know, I didn't have any sons, but I took them all in. They're my boys." And it's like, and then they understood each other in this fight. There was a deeper connection between them. I don't know. It was really beautiful. Like, it's so weird, this juxtaposition of not glorifying violence, but at the same time, there's some sort of connection that comes through this violence. Like, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I'm just totally with you. And I think it's, we're talking about an older culture. And in a lot of older cultures, there is a much more violent,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they live and die a lot more through violence. But it's interesting because you're absolutely right about old guy and how he bonds with Kojiro, and he's also looking for a way out because he realizes that his purpose in life, serving his lord, is gone. His lord is dead, and I think they've been sort of in a collective denial. Yeah, we're gonna get back, and I think some of them are admitting it to themselves. And I think he realizes it probably more than or earlier than anyone else. And he's like, you know what? It's a good day to go. And this could be my moment. To go in that state, he dies with a smile on his face.
He does. He does. And I'm sure we're going to dig into kind of some of the revelations that we got through this fight. But before we do, I love these characters. So I want to spend a moment focusing on them as individuals, because I think that there was a deeper meaning behind the fact that they were collecting the hairs of their fallen comrades and they were going to return it.
Yeah.
And I think there's this collective thing that keeps coming up in this series of this greater meaning, this greater purpose, this greater, like, I'm going to become immortal. I'm going to become the best, the strongest. And regularly, as characters have this ultimate quest, they're just so quickly cut down and so quickly humbled. And this is one of those things where they're clinging to this ideal. We're all going to return home together. We're all going to return to our master. And my fallen comrades, I'm taking their hair. I'm going to hand it to our master. And yet each one stays to fight in this meaningless fight. They could have walked away, but they stay to fight. And I think that there's something deeper that Inoue was doing with that. Did you feel like you pulled anything from all that?
Oh, most certainly. Yeah. Yeah. No, the sense of brotherhood that you identified earlier, it's huge there. And we're talking in most warrior cultures, loyalty to your lord, loyalty to your fellow warriors. These are the ultimate things. And you're prepared to sacrifice anything. And we see examples of this later on too, where we haven't gotten there yet, but in the third volume that we're talking about today, you see a man who's willing to have his arm cut off for his master, right?
Yeah.
So that ideal of sacrifice and loyalty and honor and courage very much being explored here. And the consequences of this ideal, what I like that Inoue does is it's not mere glorification. It's exploring the ramifications in all, and it's not just, and it's also not, on the flip side, it's not just simple condemnation. Oh, look at these violent people. It's a really nuanced exploration, I think, from a modern perspective of this warrior ideal.
I think so too. I think it's kind of trying to, because I think historically we're so removed from this ideal that it's easy to just look at it and say that was so messed up, and it was. But he kind of brings it in closer so that we can understand why people had this mentality and why this was people's lifeblood, life philosophy, and then deconstructing it from that place of understanding as opposed to from that place of removed judgment, which I think is a really powerful way to do it.
That's beautifully said. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah, beautifully said.
So we got some archetypes through these characters. We have the old man who's
old
the
guy.
father. Yeah. I will always connect with characters like Jisai and like Sajiro. Sadakor. I think I've been saying his name wrong. It's a hard one. But anyway, I will always connect with these old men or women who take in someone who's not their blood and say, you are my son, you know, as an adoptive mom. I'm just like, yes, yes. And, you know, I grew up with my parents taking in, I didn't grow up in a really good area. And a lot of kids were displaced. And I would wake up with just teenagers sleeping on my living room floor. It was just like, our home was the safe haven growing up. And I have a dream as my kids get older that any kids that feel displaced, like they would know that they're safe where I am. And that I could be like, I may not adopt every child, but I will be the mother to anyone who comes in my path that needs a mother, you know?
I can see you doing that.
Thank you. And so characters that are this way, like him, who's like, you could be my son. I see. And it's like, oh yeah, take him in. And he's cut down by his new son. So it's like
it's weird.
Connect there. But,
yeah, it's a paradox.
I love him for that. And even Kuan, who he died so that these boys could go, and they stayed.
They come back. Yeah.
And he's lying there dying, and he's like, you're supposed to go. but he still calls out to them. He's like, it doesn't hurt that bad. It's okay. Which is so sweet. And then, Kuan, I think is how you would say his name, the big guy.
He's like, I call him big guy, but
big guy. He's squaring up to Kojiro, and he's like, you better be worth it. Like, you better be something great to have cut down my dad, essentially. And he's got tears running down his face as he squares up with him. And it's just like, oh, it was all so that found family theme is very tender for me. It's very near and dear to me. And their bond really spoke to me.
Absolutely. And it's all the more poignant because as readers, I think we all realize Kojiro is going to survive this, which means they're all going to die, you know, except maybe the one with a wounded leg, you know. We don't know because at the end it's left like where he's just killed big guy, you know.
I think he will, specifically because when they acknowledged, sorry.
We need a witness too. Yeah.
We need a witness. That's a good point. Yeah. But when they acknowledged that the one with the wounded leg was holding everybody back and that it would be more convenient to kill him.
Yeah.
Big guy who's been holding on to the hairs.
Yeah.
He was dad was like, okay, kill him. And I think he said that because he knew he wouldn't. But big guy then like goes in to kill him and instead hands him the hairs and says, you need to live so that you can return this to our master.
Yeah.
And continues. I think it was the guy with the wounded leg that continued to cut off everybody's hair as they fell to Kojiro. Yeah. So I think he's gonna live and he's gonna keep them. And it's not so much about returning to their master. It's more about holding on to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well said. Again. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. But it is a really interesting encounter when Koun, Koun, however you say his name.
I've been saying Kun. I'm sure that's wrong.
Whatever I say is probably wrong. But anyway, his initial assertion, you better be the best swordsman ever. And it's absolutely because of the fact that this person, Kojiro, has just killed his father figure. But it's also, I think he too wants this to be, if he's going to go, you know, whether it's vengeance or his death, it needs to be the most glorious moment ever. And to be, and later you see it because this is his fight with Kojiro is interrupted because young guy gets his turn first. Essentially, we go to the young guy who you get a flashback of him and his older brother as the older brother is watching his younger brother, and that also got me. The wounded guy with the wounded leg is the older brother of the youngest among them. And you get these flashbacks of him remembering, I needed to protect my brother. But the guy with the wounded leg has never been really the type to embrace the sword like some of these others, like his younger brother. Mm-hmm. So he's an interesting character as a witness too, because he knows what the ideal is, but he's not it, and he knows it. Mm-hmm. And he watches his younger brother die to this ideal. And I think he feels such conflict about that.
No, I very much agree. And it is interesting because I think he was the one that throughout the whole fight, we got little flashes of him saying, "I don't agree with you. I don't want to die here today. I don't want this to
A
be
lot of
my
his
thing."
voice in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of hard to identify who's speaking and who's thinking, but I'm pretty sure it was him. But we also get some really good revelations about Kojiro through this fight because they
Yes.
have this connection. And specifically, it was Ichizo, the one that
That's the
when Kuon
young
say,
one. That's the young one, right?
yeah, the brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever he says, "I want to square up." Kuon, stay out of the way. Big guy, stay out of the way. I want to square up now, right? We got a lot through him because when he does square up to Kojiro, he turns off his sense of hearing and he like has everything fade, tries to turn off his voice and like when a bird flies, it doesn't think about flapping its wings, it just does. So I need to get to that point of Zen, which I guess pulls back to those Buddhist themes.
Yes.
I need to get to the point of Zen to just be, not to think about it. And I think we really unlocked a major core theme of what makes someone a great fighter. And he even acknowledges, that's why you're something so special, because you don't have those distractions. You being born deaf, you're so connected to your body already.
Yes.
Which,
yeah.
It was interesting. I was talking to some people in my Discord about this after I read it, and someone mentioned, I don't think Inoue is glorifying deafness. And I completely agree. I don't know if that's like a common conversation within the community, within the fandom, but I completely agree. It doesn't feel like anything's being glorified or vilified. It almost feels like an honoring of if you're differently abled, like if you are disabled, then it doesn't mean that you are less than or unable. It just means that it's going to look different for you, but you have access to all those things as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think the point is that he was much more naturally within himself and in touch with himself.
Yeah.
But it's also the case that you get this beautiful imagery, and it's going back to Kojiro's connection with the ocean, with the water, and that is just brilliant because it's not just him being within himself. He's very much connected to the world outside, going again back to the Buddhist theme of connection, of transcendence. And I've obviously I don't follow the way of the sword or anything like that,
right.
But I think we can all relate with some activity. Like I might have mentioned, I played tennis before, and my best moments ever, and they're very fleeting, but it's when I'm playing and I just forget. I'm not thinking. I'm not, I'm just being in that moment. And that's when I hit the best ground strokes. That's when I just feel like I'm flying. It's a similar type of thing, I think.
Yeah. That's a really great observation that I wouldn't have made that connection. I'm not very athletic, but rock climbing is my thing.
There you go.
And yeah, I've had the same experience where if I'm just in it, if I just feel connected, there is a certain connection that at least that I feel to the wall, like to the wall that you're climbing. You feel a connection to it. And when you're just there and you're in it, it's a different climbing experience and a different kind of success than if you're thinking about every move and you're trying to almost like striving to reach that Zen.
Yeah.
It's very different.
That is what these crazy guys are after, that transcendence. They are after that experience of transcendence in the moment of combat, where they are 1000%. That's not a real thing. I know I'm an English professor, not a math professor, but they're completely in that moment. Their whole being, their whole soul is poured into that without thought. And they're just, everything around them is part of them, and they are part of everything around them in that moment. Mm-hmm. And you see these glimpses of that revelation. And I think Kojiro is more maybe naturally attuned to that, but Musashi has it in moments too. Mm-hmm. We can talk about that later, because we're
we definitely will.
Yeah,
you brought up, I think it was in our last discussion, that Kojiro has learned from the ocean and Musashi has learned from the mountains. And we got a line in this one that Kojiro has now learned from the mountains. So
Yeah.
Is Musashi going to learn from the ocean? Like,
Ooh,
there's such parallels to each other, so different, but
yeah.
always learning similar things.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really cool. And then, of course, we do get back to after young guy dies, we get
Mhm,
back to the fight with big guy,
mhm.
Kun, who that was one of my favorite actually moments in that it's the second volume, I think, in
Yeah,
this
it
bind up.
is.
That was really something, and how Kun arrived at this point of embracing Kojiro, who has this moment of ecstasy where he actually touches Kun's face at one point. And it's like he didn't have any intention of hurting him. It was just this moment of fascination, of transcendence, of recognition that you and I are one here, buddy. You and I are
Ah.
in this moment of transcendence together, and we're doing it for each other. And it's this kind of just acknowledgement of that when he reaches out and touches him like that.
Oh, that's so interesting. I had a completely different interpretation
What
of
was
that
your take
too.
on that? Yeah.
So, it's kind of a manga trope that
Oh,
that it's like progression. It would be the equivalent of progression fantasy.
yeah.
So when you fight someone, you level up. You get a little bit stronger. You learn a new move. You learn a new fighting technique. Now you can fight a stronger opponent. And I think Inoue actually does this in a more interesting way than I've ever seen before, where it doesn't actually feel like a leveling up. It feels like a much more organic learning from your opponent and learning something new by trying out different techniques and by needing to fight someone with a different fighting style.
Hmm.
A lot of times it's like blatantly, overtly acknowledged, I'm going to be stronger after I finish fighting you. I will level up, right? But with this, it felt so organic. And I felt like Kojiro was learning that rapid speed that we've seen before, where someone can slice you without you even seeing them coming. He was learning that rapidity, but there's also each of these men have a deeper connection than we've really not necessarily deeper connection than we've seen before, but then we've been in the head of someone who um, they have that Zen state. And because of that, if Kojiro attacked Kuon uh, with the intent to harm, then he would have felt that and he would have deflected.
Right.
So Kojiro was trying something out. If I don't have the intent to harm you,
Hmm.
can I touch you? And he just wanted to pinch his cheek, just
And
tease him,
his
just
cheek,
play with him, and
yeah.
then pull back. And
Yeah.
it worked. So that's why he started dancing and celebrating, because he was like, I got it. I unlocked this. I figured it out. And so then he was able to do it again, but this time with the intent to harm, but with
Mm.
that layer of, I just want to touch you, and then maybe switch it up at the end or something like that.
Yeah.
He figured out how to be able to do it. And Kuon said, aha, I was right. I saw your intent to harm me, so I was able to deflect. And then he realized, oh no,
Oops.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Right? So like we watched in real time Kuon fiddle with it and figure it out and get to that point that we've observed before, that stealth, that speed that's undetectable. You know what I mean?
I do, and I think you're absolutely right. I also think that both things are
I think
simultaneous.
you're right too. I think you saw something that I didn't see as well.
Yeah, well, I don't have the manga background, so I didn't realize that's a thing, the leveling
Yeah.
up thing, which is cool because I think you're right. Absolutely, 100%. I think both things are going on though too, which is awesome actually. So it is an act of mutual
Mhm.
recognition of the self in the other, and at the same time it is also transcendent, and it is also this sense of bliss because yes, I've understood this thing that I'm trying to be the best at, and this is a step further. So all of that is all wrapped up in there, and it's really
I know. Yeah, it's such a
beautiful.
simple thing that has so many layers to it. It's incredible.
Yeah,
They also, speaking to that connection, that bond, that understanding they have for each other, there were multiple with both of the opponents that he faces, or rather all three of the opponents that he faces here. There's this moment of understanding where they smile at each other and it's like, we're one, we're connected, we get each other.
yeah,
And we also had multiple recognitions of, I've never spoken with an opponent as much as I have Kojiro, which
yeah,
we got that with Tenshichiro, right?
Yeah.
He said the same thing. And it's this acknowledgement of Kojiro's voice, despite his voice looking different, which
Yeah.
is so beautiful to me.
It's gorgeous. The idea that he is communicating with them without language, without words, without verbal language. He
Mhm.
has his own language. And they are most certainly, without the use of the spoken word, connecting with one another. It's like words are irrelevant to the incredible experience that they're having. There's no way to even express it in words.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And then he dances and he, there's this incredible.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another really beautiful moment that came from this fight was when both of them, both of the young men, the tall one and the younger one, wanted his name and mattered to them.
Yes.
Unfurl that banner, and he was able to show them proudly his name, and they proudly gave their names back to him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. The idea that I need to know who you are.
Mm.
Before one of us dies, it's very important to me to know who you are. And I wonder if it has to do with the fact that they're seeing this person as a foe, but also as a brother. I need to know who you are. I need to connect with you in this way. It also is about, I'm going to be able to say, I defeated so-and-so, not some nameless foe. But I think there's a deepening of the bond with the holding of that name, perhaps.
Yeah. I think it's the honoring of a worthy opponent.
Yeah.
We saw it in Vagabond when Thorkel
yes.
encounters. Yeah. Do you remember? Yeah. And he's like, warrior, I would know your name, or something like that. Yeah. It's in One Piece as well when Zoro first fights his greatest opponent. And at first, Zoro, the character in One Piece, is deemed so unworthy that the man pulls out what is essentially a toothpick and he's like, I'm gonna fight you with this. Right? Like it's terrible. But after this character proves his honor and his worth, then this man says, okay, what's your name? Like there's this, it's an acknowledgement of you're worthy. I want to know who you are,
Yeah, it's about honor and respect. Yeah,
I think so. And Kuon even asked him at some point, he says, is there someone that I should deliver your hair to?
Yeah.
I love it. There's so much honor wrapped up in this fight, which is so weird because you're killing each other. But like there's still honor there.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really crazy. Yeah.
We should probably talk about the final volume too.
Oh yes, we need to fit that in too. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
I know, there's so much to unpack in this. Yeah. But did Sajiro challenges Musashi? Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, he puts up the prominent, puts his eye challenge, and he puts the sign up for everybody to see. And I love how that signpost becomes a focal point of a sort where you get not only Musashi responding to it by putting his handprint over it. There's a message. But also, guess who else we meet laughing at that?
Yes.
And understanding. So Kojiro shows up.
Sajiro?
Sajiro, yes. That's the older brother of Denchichiro.
Sajiro. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure how to say his name. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sajiro. Oh, I might be mispronouncing it, but close enough probably. But yeah, so he sees it, but also we don't know what role he's going to play. But Kojiro shows up and is laughing, and people are like, what are you laughing at? And then somebody realizes, oh, that's Kojiro. And they're like, okay, So that signpost has become a kind of
it's a connecting point.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really exciting. I feel like we're getting so close. We're getting so close to everybody. And we even in this volume too, we also have Matahachi.
Yeah.
Wearing Kojiro's name and still doing, oh my goodness. Now he's running the same kind of scams that were once used on him.
Yes.
He's still spending all his
introduction fee. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And he's still using all of his resources for indulgences. He's lonely. He's feeling empty. It's all unfulfilling. He doesn't want to be wearing Kojiro's name anymore. It's just, there's so much buildup happening here.
Yeah, that's a sad moment for him when he just says, I want to be with someone who knows me as Matahachi. And you can see just how he realizes how shallow and meaningless his pursuit is, hedonistic, life, and being someone, trying to be someone he's not, all of
Mhm.
this. He's really lost. He's
He's so lost. He's
yeah.
so lost. It's very tragic. Another connecting point that we have, he's now running back to Oko so that there will be someone who knows him and knows his name.
Yeah.
But who's with Oko? Her
Yeah.
daughter,
Yes.
Akemi.
Akemi. Yes.
Akemi.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, she's there. She's still a virgin, still being saved. She could potentially have this role, but behind the scenes, she is Sajiro's love or interest or connection somehow, but she still remembers Takezo. Like there's so many different strings all connecting, just barely missing each other.
Yeah, because Sajiro realizes, oh, Musashi, as he and Akemi have been making love or whatever. And she's like, yeah, a little bit, and you can tell she's been, because earlier we know she was really kind of had a thing for him.
Yeah.
So.
She's definitely not let go of whatever connection she has on him. I'm worried about her. I still view her. I mean, like, I know in this scene she's not meant to be viewed as a child, but I still view her as a child.
She's pretty young.
Yeah. She's young, and I'm worried about her.
She hasn't not had the best role model in her mother, in Oko.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's one of those things where you see a kid who, when they're a kid, they're wise enough to know their parents' behavior is not good, but somehow they find themselves drifting into that same behavior. And that happens a lot.
Sure. And I don't know if she is, because Oka's very manipulative and self-serving and cruel. I feel like we saw a lot of ruthlessness in her. And I don't know if I see any of that in Akemi.
Not the ruthlessness, but she's become, someone who, like her mother, uses her body to.
Do you think it seemed like Sajiro it seemed like they had an actual relationship, not that he was visiting her, because they all, like, when she was at the house, at the pleasure house, and people wanted to buy her, she was off limits. And her mom, I think, doesn't realize that she has a companion. You know what I mean? This seems like a relationship to me.
I think so, but I also think that she realizes that, or feels that Sajiro is way beyond her. Like he's in a social class that's completely different, that he's the head of this, Yoshioka clan and everything else. So he's way beyond her. Like, she feels like, to him, I'm just an occasional source of pleasure. I'm not a potential long-term mate. So
I don't think she wants to be, though. I think she still is looking at Takezo to potentially fill that role.
Yeah, I think so.
So it might be like a mutual, we're here for each other now, but yeah.
But we also get a glimpse of Otsu.
Yeah, we do. That's true.
Yeah, Otsu and the little boy Jotaro.
Yeah.
And my boy Takun shows up as well.
He sure does. Always that wise mentor counseling everybody.
Yeah. Takun / Inoue himself, putting himself in the story there. But it's a little bit of a sad moment for Otsu, because we didn't know before that she had done this, but apparently she, for a moment there, was going to choke. If it hadn't been for choking. Yeah, if it hadn't been for Jotaro stopping her, she might have actually gone through with it. And you can't blame her for being angry at this horrible woman who has manipulated and mistreated her and keeps reminding her, well, we took you in, so we own you, and that's not a nice adoptive mother. That's a mean adoptive mother who's basically on a power trip. We've observed before how self-centered she is.
She is, yeah. And I think that's essentially what the monk was telling her too, is, you deserve to feel betrayed and hurt and used, but that doesn't justify taking it so far. Which, good thing Jotaro was there to step in, because I do think that if she had followed those passions and followed those urges, she would have deeply, deeply regretted it, because that's really not who she is and who she's chosen to be.
I agree. Also, I don't think she would have done it if the old woman had said, "Oh, I gotta kill Otsu." She also said, "I gotta kill Musashi.
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
gotta kill Takezo." I think that's what snapped Otsu because she loves Takezo.
That's a good observation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of Musashi,
Yeah.
he wants to fight Sajiro. And I really liked in this volume, we still see that we've brought up before that he's kind of two people right now. He's still the beast, but there's also this enlightened side of him that he's
Yeah.
wrestling with. And
Yeah.
we still see him really going back and forth, fighting to be stronger, using the elements to learn the cold and then the fire and everything he interacts with. He thinks, okay, how can I relate this back to fighting? What can I learn from this thing? Right.
Yeah.
But we also see him really questioning his own philosophy. Everybody at some point, I've had someone stronger than us. So I just need to get to the plateau where nobody's stronger than me. Did I just freeze up? Can you still hear me?
I know you're good. You're good now. Yeah.
Okay. And then he stops and he goes, but if I get to that point that the battle's already won before the battle begins, then what's the point of the battle? So this is wrong. And you can see him kind of wrestling with, these are my ideals, but they don't make sense. So what do I believe? What do I think? You know? And you see him kind of fluctuating back and forth between, and he still is saying, I want to be immortal. I want to be this, right? And he's still spouting that same ideals, but then he has these old men, these old geezers counseling him in the place where his father used to be. And we see that back and forth in him a lot in this volume.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. And I actually got annoyed with him in this volume. I was like, Musashi,
Yeah.
Takezo, come on. He's like, these old men, I want to be like them. So to be like them, I need to kill a bunch of people, right? And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
but that's exactly what Ito is saying. Earlier in this bind up, he's like, in order to be strong, you got to kill everybody. And it's only through experience that you can become this enlightened warrior. So it's like we're getting these opposite opposing philosophies.
Yeah.
And Musashi hasn't even been under Ito's tutelage, and I hope he never is, because he really does glorify the beast. And that's exactly what these old geezers are trying to knock out of him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is true. He's been raised a certain way, and he has these people coming into his life for very short periods of time to try to teach him otherwise. Yeah. And he wants that enlightenment, but he can't really help that he's spent his entire life glorifying something else.
Yeah.
And so he has, it's kind of, have you ever watched Avatar? The last
I know what Avatar is. Yeah. I have.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
It's like Zuko. It's like you got to have the back and forth. You got to have the...
Yes, I know who that is. Yeah. Okay.
You do. Okay. Yeah. You got to have the new self that I want to be. I want to be this new self, but then continuing to fall back in your old ways because of character arc, a real character arc. Just, it's not that simple. It takes the 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah. So, I have a daughter who's not too much younger than you are. So I did see episodes of yeah. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And it is exactly what you said. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And even Sajiro notices, hey, Musashi, you may even be, further backward than you were a year ago.
Yeah.
He's kind of observing that too. And I think he's very perceptive in some ways. Sajiro is.
Yeah.
Very disillusioned, I think, because he sees it's such an interesting contrast between him and his brother Denchichiro, where Sajiro is he's disillusioned. He is such a capable swordsman. He's just a natural talent, but he also sees the, I think, ultimate futility of all of this. And so that's why he tries to, drown himself in other things, in alcohol and in pleasure.
Yeah, why he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And during all of this, you still have Denchichiro that is wanting to learn from his brother who's disillusioned by all this and who's cutting arms off of off of the people that he cares about so that he can get stronger. And like it killed
Yeah.
me when that man gave up his arm and like he's like, I've spent my life fighting with this arm and now that's over, but like worthy. It was all worthy. This is a worthy sacrifice, right? And
Yeah.
Dinshijiro, instead of like, I don't know, maybe this is the wrong perspective, but instead of honoring that man and the sacrifice he just gave him, he just instantly is like, yeah, but my brother would help me grow more than this guy did, you know?
Yeah. I think Denchichiro is still, we got a glimpse of him in the previous bind up
Mhm.
where he's trying to work himself up because he has a lot of fear inside him.
Mm.
And I think he's still trying to just bury that fear. I don't think he's really gotten rid of it. And so I think he's still trying to be the man, you know, and he isn't, even though he's bigger than his brother, he's got that fear. So I think he's sickened even a little bit by what he's done, cutting off this guy's arm. And it is very much, I think we saw, it's an interesting way that Inoue chose to present all this because we got the scene in the beginning of this of Musashi cutting off Denchichiro's arm. And we haven't gotten to that point there. That happens and it says 10 days earlier, you know, or something.
Oh, yeah. Yep. You're right. You're right.
I am assuming if that's not one of those, you know, because there were several panels earlier that were imaginary, right?
Yeah.
Somebody,
sure. But those are pretty distinct. It's the kind of seeing, okay, if I make this move, then this will happen. But
right.
I think you're right because those were color panels.
Yeah.
And those were like a big, okay, here's what's coming. So we'll probably be seeing that in our next bind up.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that match. But also at the end of this one, it's slightly ambiguous, but there's the one panel at the very end that's, and again, I think it's not one of those imaginary ones where they've essentially poked each other's eyes out and all that. And then there's the last panel, which suggests to me that Musashi's killed Sajiro.
Yeah.
And he's killed him.
I agree. It did look like that. We really ended in a rude place, didn't we?
It was like, wait, did he just? Yeah, I think he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he just killed Sajiro. Yeah.
He's either dead or he's so mortally injured that.
Yeah, I mean that's a cut that's going clear down. You know,
I think so too.
Into his lungs.
Remember, I don't remember the one that we had such a hard time with. His name, Chain and Sickle guy.
Oh yes.
His injury was so severe that he had to beg for help from Musashi in order to survive, to take care. So it could be like that, but I do agree that I lean more towards he's actually felled him. Like
I think he's gone. And it does say there is some text and it says this is the beginning of Musashi's battle against the entirety of the Yoshioka clan. So it would seem that he has slain Sajiro at the end of this. After being, there's that part where he's drooling because his whole being is focused on this moment.
He's in that Zen.
Yeah, he's in that. He's found himself in that. And poor Sajiro at that point didn't have a chance.
Yeah, and it's really good writing to introduce, or to rather to deepen that state, because we've seen Sajiro move so fast that he's able to cut without, right? Like we've seen that.
The forehead.
Exactly. And he reopened it.
Not again.
That was so funny. When Musashi was like, really? Seriously?
Burning. Yeah.
But anyway, we've seen him use that, and then we deepened our knowledge on what that is through our fight with Kojiro and the mighty men. And so now we know that it's the Zen state that you have to get to, where you dislodge yourself from your body, or rather dislodge yourself from the distractions and are in tune with your body. And then we see Musashi entering that Zen state and being able to match Seijiro's speed and actually overpower that speed and get that fatal blow in. So I think that that's just really good writing to introduce something, not explain it, deepen it in another way, and then use it on someone else without us needing to have it explained in this particular battle. You know what I mean?
I do. I think that's the perfect explanation, actually. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Cool. Well, I mean, is there anything else you wanted to talk about in this?
I think we covered it pretty well. I think we're obviously there's going to be something we missed, but this was a wonderful discussion.
Oh, it was. This is a really fun one.
This was fun. Yeah. So thank you, Murphy. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Musashi, I think the next time we see him, he's going to have a new scar and
Yeah.
going to be functioning with one eye, which will be interesting because that'll affect his sight. That'll affect one of his senses. That's another parallel with Kojiro. Like they're just constantly looking alike.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, I sense that we're about to get to some really epic stuff. So
I think so too. I'm really excited. I think we've entered a new arc. So
okay.
We'll see where this one takes us.
We will indeed.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Philip. Once again, we do these discussions every other week on each other's channel. So the next one will be on Philip's channel. So be sure, I have his channel linked in the description. Be sure to subscribe, look out for that. And we will see you again next week. Bye.